do.
Okay.
We're back. Finally. I've been waiting for you to get your act together and come have a podcast with me. And we're both dressed up like winter soldiers because there's a blizzard outside.
Yeah.
And but you managed to walk here just fine.
Yeah. I put all my clothes today. I'll put them on and then I walk through the snow.
Well, it's good to be back at the table with you finally.
Yeah.
It took only 2 YouTube videos and me calling you out publicly to get you to come.
Yeah.
By publicly, I have like 25 views, so
Yeah.
25 people will know that Mikael Carlson should have come to the podcast.
Yeah. I feel ashamed.
Don't be too hard on yourself, buddy.
No.
I couldn't even remember how to put on the recording software.
Exactly.
It's been so long.
Yeah.
But hey, what you been up to?
Working.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Non-stop.
Yeah.
It's been a busy year. I feel like it's been a busy year.
Yeah. I think it's for everybody.
Yeah. I think so.
It's strange because when you think about how the world is, but everybody is really busy working.
Yeah. I feel like everybody I've talked to this year has said the same thing, that they just haven't stopped.
Yeah.
Like this whole year. I thought, oh, maybe it's just a busy summer.
Yeah.
You know, and then the summer ended and I was still busy, but I opened 3 restaurants this year, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you have a reason to be busy.
Yeah.
You've done it to yourself.
Self-inflicted busyness.
Yeah.
I always say that like self-inflicted injury or self-inflicted, like problems time-wise, they don't count. You know what I mean? Because it was your own choice.
Yeah. So actually, you haven't been busy.
Yeah.
So how do you count it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
no.
But we haven't really talked about what we're gonna bring.
No,
up
this
today.
is completely blindfolded.
Completely blindfolded.
Yeah.
So, but I hope it ends up pretty good anyway.
Hope
But
so.
one thing that I was thinking about, and this came up recently in a conversation with my friend, and we were talking about goal setting, and we were talking about like achieving targets and self-improvement, and kind of all of these words that revolve around entrepreneurship or business management, or it kind of buzzes around, every topic to do with your work and your business. It's all driven by, key performance indicators and goals and aspirations and achievement targets, and they're all set by deadlines. And for those that know me, I think it's a really weird world that we live in. Like that we're kind of born, and then we go to school and we learn, and then we're just constantly pushing. And I can say this because I'm not being hypocritical, because out of most people I know, I push myself the most.
Yeah.
Business wise, work wise, I'll be renovating my house, opening restaurants, looking after kids, doing some online programs, all at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm allowed to say this. I feel like I've earned the right.
You always find a new project. Even though you have 5 projects ongoing, you find a new project to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But this brings me to the topic. Okay. So the conversation revolved around entering into a new field of work or entrepreneurship or business, and then putting pressure on yourself to improve or to achieve certain targets in a certain time frame. And I've been doing a lot of research on this lately, and David Goggins, for example,
Yeah.
and these crazy dudes that achieve crazy things that really put your achievements in perspective. And he brought up something that was really interesting to me in the most recent podcast he had with Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And that was that he just, like, there's no, target or goal, or it's just, he just goes and runs, and then he just runs until he's done running, and then that's it. You know what I mean? He doesn't necessarily count it. The most he ran in one session was like 230 miles or something, like just insane.
Yeah, there's
like
no
63 hours, or don't quote me on this, but
yeah.
that just seemed insane. The point was, though, that there was never necessarily like a finish line. And I reflected on that, and I kind of have a similar principle with the way in which I treat myself as an entrepreneur. Is that the day comes and the day goes, and then there's another day. And the timeline in which my existence continues doesn't have a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it doesn't have necessarily an end goal. It's just the next day. And I know that sounds like a little bit morbid and maybe a little bit kind of, groundhoggish in a way. And it's not to be confused with my lack of drive or my wanting for the company to achieve certain targets. But I think it is important to reflect on it as an entrepreneur, because I have found a way to deal with an exuberant amount of pressure and stress and multifaceted lifestyle by treating my journey this way. So it doesn't put pressure on me personally to say like, holy shit, it's Friday. I said I was going to do this by Wednesday. And that's where you build that anxiety from as an entrepreneur. And even for you, right? So you're kind of you're in a we talked about this today, you're in a publicly traded company, middle management, you have tons of targets to achieve, you have tons of deadlines, and that makes you feel awful, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to reflect on this and talk about it, and I want to get your view on it. So that's where we're at.
All right. Nice. Yeah. Well, actually, I would say also that if we talk about David Goggins and you and whoever, and just doing things that you have done for a very long time and you're very invested in it, there's not an end goal, but there's always these small goals in between. And those are the goals that you are striving for. But there's no an absolute end goal. If there would be an absolute end goal, when you reach that, what then? Then you stop doing things. So I think that's probably one thing with David, for example, and being an entrepreneur or training or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you don't have an end goal, you just like the journey. Then you have like you need to have small goals, otherwise you don't achieve anything. But you have, like you said, it's from day 1 to day 2 and so on.
Exactly. And I think this can be applied from a personal perspective as well.
Yeah.
The friend that I was discussing this with is on a really deep personal growth journey, which is really good. And I think it's a really important kind of phase throughout anybody's life. And I find that entrepreneurs get pushed into that development, almost like intrinsically. And the discussion that I had was about kind of finding true self, or discovering kind of the true meaning of who you are and what you should be about, or what you are about. And I kind of put it to her this way, that you're making it sound like there's kind of a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. And I don't think that personal development kind of ends at some point.
No.
You know what I mean? I think it's continuous. So if you put this kind of pressure on yourself, nothing against her. I think everybody has their own journey. And I think everybody has their own way of dealing with all the shit that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. But, in self-reflection, it was like, well, I really don't know who I am myself, but I don't know who I'm going to be. All I'm really trying to do is do a little bit better the next day than I did the day before. And whether it's like in my personal life, that I make just 5 minutes extra with the kids, and just play with the Lego as much as I don't want to think about it. I'll play with the Lego just for 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
Or if it's seeing that friend of mine's birthday pop up on Facebook that I haven't spoken to in ages, just give a call.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just kind of be
small things.
And I think, those things contribute to my journey and where I'm kind of moving towards. And I don't have necessarily this ideal picture of the person I want to be, or the entrepreneur I want to be, or the kind of business that I want to have. All I know is that there will be a tomorrow, and that's my opportunity to do something that I didn't do today.
Yeah, and you know your certain areas where you have to, you know that you can develop yourself, and you know that you can get better at things in certain areas. So just concentrate on those and do small things in those areas just to get a little bit better on those areas.
Right.
But it's also, we are also very flawed like ourselves to reflect ourselves. We see some certain areas that we think that we lack something in or whatever, but then when you ask someone else, they can have a totally different view, and you can be really bad at something that you don't even think about because you don't prioritize that.
Right.
So that's also kind of, I think that like personal journey, you will really need some sort of like reflection, not only by yourself, but also have discussion with some, I don't know what there are, some expert or someone.
Yeah, or just like a non-biased point of view.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think, it could be an expert, psychologist or psychiatrist. I still don't know what the difference is really, to be honest.
Me neither, yeah.
But yeah, I think, but also, there's, if you have good friends,
yeah, they can probably give you really good insights on.
Yeah, I'll tell you where you're like.
Yeah, tell me.
Legs.
I know that. So in that sense, we're on the same page. So no worries. I know that.
No self-reflection needed.
No.
Yeah, but I think you're absolutely right. Getting that non-biased opinion can be hard though, because it can be like some hard truth.
It can, yeah. It can be something that you have kind of in your mentality, you have just pushed it aside because it's something that you don't even prioritize and you don't think it's important, but somebody else can see that you really lack on this area, and then it feels it's a real struggle to do and develop things that you don't see to be like a lack in yourself. But actually 100%. It's probably the biggest lack that you have.
100%.
So that's probably like the biggest like self-improvement journey, to do the things that you don't like to do and you don't like to improve. It's easy to think that I could be better at reading, or I could read more books, and I could train more and do stuff that you like and you feel that you get out from yourself a lot.
Right.
But then when you think about your surroundings and people around you and so on, there's a lot of things that you can do for them that you don't think about.
Yeah,
so it's also
100%. I think you like pretty much hit the nail on the head as what I'm trying to achieve from this conversation. Is it really boils down to be able to self-motivate.
Yeah.
And when we talk about kind of all these goals that we're trying to achieve, I believe our self-motivation, this is something I've experienced recently, I believe our self-motivation can be damaged, and our ability to kind of get up earlier or get out of bed or just go to the gym or just eat better or whatever it is. I think it can be damaged by these kind of outlying goals that we haven't yet achieved, because you feel like they're a priority. Yeah. Even though they might be micro targets. You know what I mean? There could be hundreds of targets you have before you kind of reach this so-called end goal, but those micro targets feel much bigger than what they are.
Yeah.
And I think, so this was another interesting concept that I've been kind of running off lately, and this is this concept of the string of pearls. And I actually don't know if I'm applying it correctly, and it was recently in a Netflix series with Jonah Hill and his psychologist. But anyway, what the string of pearls was for me was it was about looking at things from an objective point of view, that each task, no matter how big or small it felt, it was just one more task. So
one more pearl in
the string of pearls. Yeah. And what that gave me is perspective on, okay, every target we're trying to achieve is important. And there's not necessarily one task or a goal or target that's more important than another. It's just one pearl in a string. So if we apply that method to the way in which we think and feel about our work life and our personal life, which usually get overruled by each other one way or another. If we look at it from the perspective of a string of pearls, well, we can say that there's not one thing that's necessarily more important than another. There's just tasks that need to be done before other tasks.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, you know, the analogy of turning the dishwasher on before you've put the dirty dishes in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right? It's so,
or painting the wall before you have put the
the primer or whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right? So I think this is a really, so they're kind of the two principles I've been working off lately.
Okay.
And I've actually, I had a pretty stressful year. It was my first year as a CEO for a company this size with Poka.
Yeah.
And you know, in the early year, I had written down all these targets and goals that I had to achieve this year. And although I reached most of them, I hadn't really checked off the list until the end of the year. And to be honest, I hadn't really reviewed the list that much throughout the year. I just knew where I wanted to get the business by the end of the year. So if I kind of look at it from a string of pearls perspective, even though now I went back to those targets that I was trying to achieve, they are achieved. They're done. But I didn't think of them because they were just tasks that I was doing kind of on my roadmap of this year's like business work. It's, you know, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So where this is going is that I've met so many entrepreneurs that have like this, you know, especially those that are responsible for larger businesses and not just kind of, you know, their own payroll or, you know, let's say 20 or more employees.
Yeah.
You have that kind of gut feeling and that anxiety on a regular basis. I can tell you now there's a few times per month that it happens. One is payroll day, right?
Yeah, I can
just
imagine.
because you get to that point, you're like, oh, I have to make sure everybody gets paid correctly because they got their own things to pay.
Yeah.
You know, I have to make sure that all the accounting, the bookkeeping's done correctly. So the end of the month is another period of that time. You know, and then so throughout that month, you're having these moments of anxiety. And I think that if we continue to put pressure on ourselves to achieve targets the way that we have done in the past, that anxiety it builds up to a degree that we kind of burn out, so to say. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that happens gradually. That's like
gradually. Exactly.
Yeah, like you said also that you have the capability to like withstand a lot of stress and different things and different lifestyles and so on because you've done so many projects and so on, but you have to remember that it's been gradually adding up. If you were put to the same situation from a 0 point, you would be like probably burn out.
I totally agree.
In a couple of days.
100%.
Because it's gradually just adding up. And
right.
at some point you get accustomed to it. It's the norm, so to say.
Yeah, and there's types of stress, and you know, dealing with this was a good point from Ross Edgley in his book recently. Oh my God, it left my mind. The fitness blueprint.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the title.
The name. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ross, if I got that wrong.
Yeah.
First name basis, obviously.
Yeah. He probably watches
Yeah,
this.
definitely, 100%. One of the 25 viewers. So he talks about stress from an exercise physiologist perspective, but I think it's relative. If you're exposed to the same type of stress over and over and over again, you eventually start to reduce the amount of the stress hormone that you produce. And I find that really relative because I find if I'm just going through the normal day to day, there's zero stress. Even though I know most of those tasks or emails or phone calls that I have would stress the normal person, they don't stress me because I've been through it over and over again for 10 years or more.
Yeah.
And
it's a norm for you. It's like breathing or walking or whatever.
Exactly.
So you don't have to think about it.
Exactly. But when that one challenge pops up that I haven't dealt with before,
it can add up.
I can almost feel the stress hormone just like being released, like out of a gate.
And suddenly all those other things, because they take up your time, all those other things that otherwise weren't stressful, suddenly they become stressful. The phone rings,
100%.
You get emails, and you have this one or a few things that are out of the ordinary, that requires your concentration and takes up time for these normal tasks, then suddenly all this also becomes stressful, and that can be the one small thing that tips the cup over or something.
100%.
Yeah,
that's 100%. And then that string of pearls all of a sudden just goes out the window.
Yeah.
And all these smaller tasks or just things that you were just getting along with all of a sudden become these big things in the calendar, and you got to put aside more time than you had expected.
Yeah.
And that was kind of and okay, let's make this really relative to a lot of people. That's what happened during COVID.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people that are used to dealing with high amounts of stress.
Yeah.
But then COVID was such a left wing, it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And we had to all of a sudden deal with these things that we haven't dealt with before. So honestly, I'll say this straight out. It's the first time I've cried from stress.
Yeah.
Because I just got home and I was like, I just don't know what the next step is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you had no idea what will this lead to, what is the next thing, and it was such a big change, like a complete change, not only in the work environment, but in your private life, everything. It was
100%.
Too much of a change just at once.
100%.
Everything changed.
And everyone was asking me questions.
I'm
meant to be their leader.
Yeah, of course,
Do you know
because
what I mean?
everybody is like a question mark. Nobody knows anything.
Nobody knew anything.
And the worst thing was also our government didn't know anything. Our leaders, like the top leaders, knew nothing, and it felt, or it still feels like nobody knew anything, and everybody was just like throwing out like guesses, and
100%.
and then the whole like world followed some sort of like narrative, and I don't know. It's a deep rabbit hole.
100%. It
hasn't still cleared out.
It hasn't still cleared out.
It's controversial to talk about it even. It was completely denied to even discuss about the thing, and it splitted people, like families. It splitted relationships. It was like crazy, and that was like
people lost their jobs because they wouldn't get vaccinated.
Yeah.
People lost their jobs because they wouldn't wear masks.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden it was like, and now being vaccinated or non-vaccinated is not even an issue.
No.
So people had lost their livelihoods over what people had believed was the right path.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden we're back to normal, and those people that didn't get vaccinated are being treated the same way.
Yeah.
So we put people in this high stress position of take the vaccine or lose your job.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was so weird.
It was, yeah.
So, and in that moment, so people like me, people coming to me and saying, hey, what's happening? Can we do this? Can we do that? Are we going to open? Are we going to close? Are we going to, are we going to get paid this month?
What about the customers?
What about the customers? Yeah. How do we deal with that? What do we do hygiene-wise?
Yeah.
Because we're getting all this information, and we're just trying to put out as much clear information as we can, even though we didn't have any.
No.
You know what I mean? And then people...
And the rules were so unclear also from the government and everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think didn't even know what to do.
It took the whole first year for people to figure out what the fuck was happening.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And what kind of processes we had to take.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I've never put a whole company on layoff before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know how that works, especially in Finland. So here I am, this poor Aussie entrepreneur here in Finland in a blizzard, reading through, legislation on how this works in Finnish.
Full of loopholes and open things, not clear anything.
Exactly, and we're a big company.
Yeah.
So we were told that we were going to close the restaurant on this day, right? And because we have more employees than 20, I think it is, we had to go through that process of, I think it's called it's almost like a community agreement.
Yeah, you have to have discussion or
I can't remember what the exact translation is from Finnish to English, but you have to have a meeting with all of the
discussions.
Right. Yeah. You have to have a discussion with the whole company, every employee, that this is happening. They have to approve it. There has to be cool down periods where people can have an opportunity to. The whole thing was 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. It was some kind of 20 days. since the email went out that this meeting's taking place.
Yeah.
The meeting took place, and there was a 5-down cooling down period.
Yeah, and then the decision.
And then the restaurant was meant to be open again. You know what I mean? And we couldn't put people on layoff until we had done that. And then the government only realized that problem in the second lockdown. So nobody followed the law because we literally couldn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden the law became like rendered inute. Anyway, we're going off topic here because I'm talking about goal setting.
Yeah, but then
So what I believe is that I think it's important for us to reframe the way we consider achieving targets or developmental growth like over a long period of time. I'll be honest, I don't read a lot of like personal growth books and goal setting and stuff like this. I'm purely going off my own experience, my own growth journey. I think for a 32-year-old, I'm doing pretty okay. Had my ups and downs, but from like the personal growth perspective and where I'm at business-wise, I think I'm doing all right. So it's just my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there could be value in reframing the way we consider this and reframe the way that we put pressure on ourselves to achieve certain things by taking away the time frames, but instead breaking down the goals we're trying to achieve into smaller pearls in the whole string, and just consider them as tasks on a daily basis rather than I have to achieve this, I have to achieve that by then, I need to achieve this by then, and if I achieve those 3 things by then, I'll be able to do this by then. You know what I mean? And kind of like put in this whole framework that just builds anxiety in the individual, and we really just lose those kind of key principles that we should be considering business-wise, and we get stuck in that kind of that process.
Yeah, and it forces you like in some way, and you make bad decision based on certain like urgency and
right.
But I guess but you always when you do whatever you do, you always have some goal. You start doing it because you have some like not end goal, but whatever. I want to be a millionaire or whatever.
Yeah.
It can be whatever. I think that it's good to have those anyways, but those shouldn't be like your main goals. So just write them down. And write them down when you come up with the idea. Write them down and put
part of me doesn't want to use the word goal.
No, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? But I'm finding it hard to find a different way to describe that task.
Outcome. It's an outcome.
It's an outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
From what you do, from your journey, an outcome from your journey.
Right. So let's say that we have a string of pearls, and each pearl in that string eventually produces a certain outcome.
Exactly.
I think we're onto something here. Literally, for the audience out there, we have not come up with this before. So we're workshopping it right now.
Yeah.
I need to check the camera because I think it stops recording at some point.
That's not a problem. Yeah, otherwise it's a camcorder.
Yeah, exactly. It's some kind of tax law or something.
Yeah.
So right. Here we are. So we have a string of pearl which represents multiple tasks in a row, which achieve a certain outcome. I totally agree. And I feel a little bit controversial talking about this because as a CEO, my job is to drive company targets and goals, right? But if we reframe this and we talk about company outcomes, I think it is more focused around achievement than the word goal, because you can miss goals, right? But outcomes are relative to itself, right? An outcome is just how it ends up, which is, I think, a better word to use because every day it's so flexible. The whole process of achieving an outcome can go any direction. So if you set such strict guidelines and walls around yourself on how you're going to achieve the outcome, then you'll end up missing the goal, right? You won't achieve what you set out to originally achieve. So if we achieve multiple outcomes in a row, which means that we're actually achieving things, right? We're actually finishing what we started. And if we do that continuously in a string of pearls fashion and a multiple outcome fashion, then I think we get to where we're trying to go. And I don't want to use the word like achieve that, goal because there's still more outcomes to happen, right? There's no like end point.
No.
So whether it's business or personal, I think it's the same. I think, of course, they're approached in a different way, but if I think we can take a lot of pain and agony away from these words that we're using, like goals, targets, achievements, deadlines. Like deadline, that's really, when you really break it down, it's like,
oh shit,
achieve it or die.
Now
do you know
I'm
what I mean?
dead.
I feel like it's really, exactly. Yeah. But if we say that there's certain tasks that we're putting together to achieve outcomes, I think it's much more relevant to our business today.
Soft values instead of hard values.
Yeah, because I also talk about micro stress environments. And this is really relative now, actually, in this conversation to bring up. So people have asked me for ages how I deal with stress. The way that I put it is that I put myself in micro stress environments. So they're environments that I know I'm going to stress from, but I can manage.
That's called positive stress.
Well, I call it micro stress, so fuck you. So it's over 18 rated anyway, so I can swear in this podcast. So positive stress.
Yeah.
Right?
That drives you.
Well, but I guess the feeling is never, not always positive, right? Even at the end of the outcome.
No.
So using the word positive, I don't think is necessarily right. No. But let's call them micro stress environments because I'm visualizing them as pockets.
Yeah.
So actually like space pockets. I know it's weird. It's just kind of my mental process.
Yeah.
So we have these. I also talk about this from a training and development standpoint. If you put an employee, the best growth is made through stress, right? Whether it's physiological in the gym and we're stressing our muscles, micro tears, growth, so on, or if it's psychological and we're put in an environment where we're put under a little bit of pressure, but it's managed and supervised, then there's a great deal of growth that can come from that.
Exactly.
We live now in a world where we're too comfortable. We no longer stress ourselves. So these pockets that we end up in are way too big and we can't manage it. And I think that's when we start going down the road of like burnout, depression, anxiety, so on and so forth. So if we can identify micro stress environments, micro stress experiences, and we can be guided through those, either personally through meditation or through exercise, or in a work environment from our supervisor or from our manager or from our leader, CEO, COO, whatever it might be. If you're put in that environment and you can control it, I believe that's the best way to grow. But reducing the amount of stress, that's the hard part. And that's why I was trying to figure out a way, workshopping now, that I could strip back, still wanting to achieve targets and still wanting for the business to grow and develop into something which is awesome, but a way that I can control the activities that need to be achieved and the outcomes that need to be achieved more into a micro stress environment, right? So we have our string of pearls.
Mm-hmm.
Each pearl, each task represents an opportunity for a micro stress, right? At the end of that, we achieve an outcome. And that is actually the point in which we've achieved or we have grown to the next level from a development standpoint, because we've just experienced micro stress after micro stress. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah. Kind of like, well, it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of certain steps that you take, and then you achieve a certain point when you actually can make the next steps.
Right. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
So, I went through business school, right? I started as a consultant. You know, I've been pretty decent at my job in restaurants for a long time. So I actually started a consultation company called Silk Consulting when I was, to be honest, 17, 18, right? It was kind of like my first step into the entrepreneurial space. Now, you know, the first thing that you're taught is that, right, let's use analogies. Like, is it called a mood board? No, it's called a goal board, you know, or what's it called, where you put all the photos of things you want and want to achieve.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I don't know what it's
whatever
called.
It's called.
Yeah.
Mission board, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just like, okay, so I made one of those, right? It was a wallpaper on my laptop or something.
Yeah.
And, you know, and if I looked back at that today, I would just think to myself, like, how ridiculous was that? You know what I mean? Like, firstly, they were all material, right?
Yeah.
Which just is really sad. But the other thing was that they were just not realistic. Not necessarily because, you know, at the time I wanted those things. Sure, it's realistic from that standpoint, but it's not realistic from, well, how did I not expect to grow and develop past these things, right? Like if someone gave me $1 million today, I would not buy a Ferrari.
Who would?
Do you know what I mean? Well, we live in a winter-driven country, so. But just as an example, so, you know, and I see so many people like at you know, Tony Robbins, or these people that, you know, listen to David Goggins, and they all have like these, you know, huge, not the people. I don't necessarily think that those speakers necessarily think the same way, but the people there are just taught to set goals and then achieve goals, right? And like the house in the Hamptons is a goal, right? Hypothetically.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that whether it is or it isn't relevant, right? The point is that we have a lot of outcomes that we need to achieve before we even can visualize that as a potential opportunity for us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because you can't. What are you going to do? You got $100 in your bank account, and you're just going to be like, you know what I mean? My goal is a $2 million house in the Hamptons. It's like, okay, well, let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about what's your vehicle firstly, right? Everybody has some kind of vehicle on how they're going to achieve, you know, the lifestyle that they're looking for. That changes a lot, by the way, but if you break that down, right, and you say, okay, what's your vehicle? Well, I'm going to run a business. All right, let's talk about what it takes that business to buy that property, right? Not you personally, the business. Because for you to buy that property personally, it means your business needs to be doing 10x the property value, right? Or 5x. But let's talk about what it takes your business to achieve that, right? There's no easy money.
No,
you know what I mean? There's no
or there is
fucking 4-day work week.
There is easy money, but you're at risk with
only accessible by 10% of the population.
High risk,
right?
High reward.
Isn't yeah, yeah, right. So, I mean, unless you win the lotto, you know, and for those people that do, they never keep the money apparently. No. But
yeah,
I think we need to reframe this whole what we're trying to achieve in life process. You know, I was just watching The Problem with oh my god, I'm awful with names right now. It's on Apple TV. It's called The Problem with John.
I haven't seen it.
I'm not going to look at it. All right. Anyway, so they talk about kind of multiple topics. They talk about gun violence, you know, and how it's an issue. Yeah. They talk about the stock market, money, poverty, so on and so forth. And
Yeah.
they have a small panel, and then they kind of interview, elect Senate members or, governmental leaders in certain fields. They can give them a perspective on what's really happening behind the scenes. I think that the platform is very good. It came up about money today, and came up about the stock market and that, majority of people are working 2 jobs and still poor and so on and so forth, because their goal is not the house in the Hamptons. Their goal is just they just want to eat, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we've ended up here as a society because of the framework we've been taught, just to slave in a direction to achieve this, laptop wallpaper image of a house, and kind of keep fighting for the carrot.
What's behind that though? I mean, if I elaborate a bit,
absolutely.
I'll go back a bit
Good.
from what
Yeah.
you discussed.
I talked a lot
because
just then, so.
it was such an. I had a few thoughts about that, but if you think about what your like vision of yourself, the wall with your goals and so on. But don't you think that it was good to do that? It was kind of a like self-development, because now when you look back at it, you see how much you have developed like yourself, because now you see that these were like completely stupid things.
Yeah.
But if you hadn't done that, then you wouldn't see like how much have you like
You could
grown.
Be right. You could be right, but I'm one of the lucky ones,
Yeah.
right? Because I did grow and develop. But there are lots of people, and in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah.
Because usually this development happens over a much longer period of time.
Yeah.
I believe though that I'm lucky because I did develop in that way that I can look back and go, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people my age that would look back and go, I can't believe I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
I can't believe I haven't traveled yet. Can't believe I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it was always this like.
But have they just put like goals and not done things for them, or have they like really done things? Because the more you do, the more versatile you see that the world is, and the bigger picture you have of things, and your views change, your goals change.
Okay, statistically,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the facts that would be like, 1 in 10 actually achieve their lifetime goals.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know the statistics, but I'd be willing to bet to say that the people that know how to create the vision board, majority of them wouldn't know how to manage the stress, how to manage the string of pearls to develop outcomes to actually get to that point. That's what I'm saying, right? There are a certain amount of individuals that will achieve that vision board or whatever it is, or look back on it and go, okay, I've grown past that. But there are a lot of individuals that will look at that and become anxious or feel pressured that they haven't yet got there. And I think that's because they don't know how to break down that string of pearls, the outcomes they need to achieve to eventually get to a lifestyle they're trying to
achieve.
To achieve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And I mean, this is so multi, like, I don't know what.
Faceted.
Yeah, like issue or not an issue, but topic. But I think also that when we talk about goals, and usually boys and this, when you like ask their goals and they want a Ferrari and a nice house, but that's just like filling some sort of a void usually. I mean, materialistic things are usually just to fill some sort of void. You want a huge, nice house and a yacht, but for what?
Right.
Why? Because when you start,
I can say I want a yacht because I just don't want to be in a blizzard.
Yeah, well,
but
that could be like,
right.
but usually, like when you set those goals, you don't. I mean, is that really something you want to achieve? Is it that you want to achieve? Or what is it? But usually it's the more you do, the more it becomes that you want to have an impact, or you want to you want to do something that has meaning and so on. And probably on that journey, the outcome can be that you have like the possibility to have a yacht, and you have the possibility to have a big, but
you
that's not the
eventually
goal.
get to an outcome that gives
that's
you an
not the
opportunity.
goal actually.
Right.
It's just
So let's simplify it a little
doing
bit.
things you
like
love.
that's not such like large scale.
Yeah.
Right. Let's just put it into perspective of your recent desired outcome in the gym. So let's just break it down into this. So you and I have trained together on and off, mainly off, for
I've been on, but you've been on.
100%. I can put my hand up and say I'm not consistent with training. And I can say that that's a result of me not being able to handle the stress from COVID.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just destroyed
of
my self-motivation.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's different. So let's just put it this way. So I know that you've been working on your strength specifically and trying to increase your 1 rep max.
Yeah, well, that was the last. Yeah,
This was the last
yeah.
block, right?
Yeah.
Let's just talk about the last block.
Yeah.
The last block.
One pearl.
Well, actually, it's more than one, right? Because
kind of. Yeah, you can
you
split
see
up
where I'm
the
going
one
with this,
pearl.
right? You see
yeah.
where I'm going with this. So the desired outcome is to achieve a new personal best in 3 major lifts, right? Dead, squat, bench. Okay. The string of pearls to that outcome is, in my opinion, it's not just, okay, by week 3, I need to lift this. By week 4, I need to lift this. Because if I don't do that, I'm not going to get my desired outcome. And I think that's how we structure goals now. What I'm saying is that your string of pearls was each individual workout was a task, a pearl, that you added in a string to develop an outcome. You didn't really know what that outcome was.
Yeah.
Right? You never said
No.
to yourself, I'm going to do a 250 dead.
No.
Right? And because otherwise you would have been putting shitloads of pressure on yourself to achieve certain targets.
It
goals.
It would have killed my motivation at some point.
100%. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm glad we broke this down.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is that if we treat our personal development and our business development the same way, right? That we create finite tasks that are on the same path as our desired outcome, but we don't necessarily apply specific targets, right? It may lead us in a direction which allows us to experience less stress, less anxiety, give us more motivation, because no matter what the outcome is, each task is development, right? There's no like huge fucking pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and that's the development. The development is climbing the mountain. Getting to the top is the string of pearls that you've made to get there, right? So you get to the top of Everest, and that's not the development, right? The goal or the desired outcome to be achieved is to peak Everest.
Or
right?
Yeah. Depending on how you see it, like
you've got to get down.
And if you are at the top, what do you do next? So,
exactly. You go down, right? So that's exactly another point, right? So if we say, okay, the end goal is to peak Everest. Well, okay, what happens if you die up there?
Yeah.
Right? So technically, is the end goal to get down? Well, what happens if you get down and then what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then what? Well, there's another day.
There's another mountain.
And there's another mountain. But if you apply the string of pearls, and if you apply the desired outcome theory that we've fantastically brainstormed in this podcast, I believe that there is a way in which we can achieve more efficiently without having to experience an uncontrollable amount of stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
Just a theory. So I'm working on it.
Yeah, but it's I agree. Like, just to give a simple example, like it shouldn't be like, for example, if we talk about the deadlift,
Yep.
And I would say that it has to be 250.
Right.
No. Then you're like locked into that. And if your string of pearls don't go the way you think or have
You
planned,
get sick, you get injured.
I get sick, whatever.
Yep.
So then I lose my motivation and it feels like unbearable because I can't achieve my goals. But if my goal is just, I want to be better than last time. Small, good decisions and small goals. So I want a new PR. That's my goal. I'm happy with a PR, even if it's 1 kilogram, but I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel too burdensome and it feels like you can do it and you can be sick on the way.
Right.
But you still have that one day that you're going to test it. Will I do a PR or not?
Right.
So the same way, I want a mansion, like 1.5 million mansion.
Yeah.
Maybe your goal should be, or not goal, but one of your outcomes should be, I want my own home.
Exactly.
And after you get your own home, you can have your next goal. I want a bigger home.
Own desired outcome.
Yeah.
Exactly. Next desired outcome,
So it's
next
not
string of pearls.
Yeah, it's not like a hard...
I think you've caught on to what I'm trying to talk about. Because I think when we started this conversation, you had no idea what I was going to talk about.
No, because
I
completely blindfolded.
100%. And I wanted to kind of do that on purpose because I wanted to see if it was applicable. So, and I think you've got the point, is that so many people know what they want, but even though they may be aware,
do they?
Well, do they?
Do we
That's
know what we want?
That's
actually?
a good question also.
Or are we just on a journey to try to find out what we really want?
Too much. We don't have that much time.
I know.
Right. So, if in the case, so many people I feel know what the desired outcome should be, but don't necessarily understand the string of pearls that need to exist for that desired outcome to be realistic. And if we put it, it's really easy in the health and fitness analogy to break that down, right? You know, somebody, you walk up to somebody and you say, this guy says, I want to lose 60 pounds by this day, right? We know that so many people don't do that.
Yeah.
And it may be things that are out of their control.
Of course, yeah.
And there's too many things that are out of your control to apply such strict walls around those achievements, targets, goals, etc. Right? Don't get me wrong. My company still has KPIs, but in my opinion, those KPIs are more of desired outcomes than they are, stringent goals.
Yeah.
Right? If we're on that path to achieve that desired outcome, then we're developing as a company.
Yeah.
Pearl by pearl, not outcome by outcome.
No.
Pearl by pearl, step by step up the mountain, right? Every step we take, we learn something new. And if you apply that method to other areas of business, other areas of personal development, then I think the journey is a little less rough.
Yeah. And I think
I can tell you, my journey, rough.
Yeah.
Rough. You ask Yenny.
Yeah.
The amount of times we've been this close to divorce.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The amount of times we've sat there and argued that I'm never home. The amount of times I've prioritized work over Sade's hobby.
Yeah.
Or going to meet with her teacher.
Yeah.
The amount of times, you know what I mean? If I would have known then what I know now, a task in those string of pearls would have been to maintain my responsibility as a father, right? Because the desired outcome still would have been achieved, right? But because I put it in such a huge basket, I felt that if I closed my laptop, the path and the opportunity to achieve my goal would stop. But that's not necessarily true.
No. Exactly.
And I know that now.
Yeah.
And
I think it applies in many things that, not my words, but just be a little bit better than yesterday.
Right.
Or whatever you do, just a little bit better.
Just a little bit.
That's the way.
Right. Yeah, and I was a personal trainer for years. People still ask me, how to do this, how to do that.
Yeah.
The first step, and everybody that writes a goal setting book will tell you this. is to be consistent.
Yeah, that's
Right.
that's one thing.
So
But it's hard to be consistent.
it's hard to be consistent
really
because
hard.
of the amount of pressure we apply on ourselves to achieve goals.
And too big goals, too
Exactly,
big leaps.
two big leaps. But it's very hard to keep in context what is a big goal, because you still, right? It's like the Goldilocks budget. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You want to write a budget that's optimistic enough, right? That is still realistic for the company to achieve,
yeah,
but not quite enough optimistic that it shows a lack of growth or a
Yeah.
lack of development
yeah,
in comparison to what's expected, right? So there's this Goldilocks zone, but it's really hard to identify what's too big and what's too small.
yeah,
But if we just break it down into outcomes, and we break it down into a string of pearls or a string of actions and desired outcomes, then the goal is or the outcome is the outcome, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
big or small,
yeah,
it will eventually contribute to the success of your business, or to the wholesomeness of yourself, or to the awareness of fact that you haven't been the best father during that period, or the fact that you have been able to keep up with things.
yeah,
Either way, you'll achieve those step by step through that process to the desired outcome.
yeah. And that's also, if you have small enough goals and you have that, you just need to be a bit better than last time, then you're also much more happy than, for example, the house. If you think I want a mansion, in 5 years I want a mansion, 1.45 million mansion,
Yeah.
that's my goal in 5 years.
Yeah.
And you only have your own home. You have like achieved so much, you already have your own home, but you're not happy because it's not that 1.
Exactly.
You have failed.
There's always grass greener on the other side.
Yeah.
And if we keep thinking that way, I truly believe as a
You
society,
feel like
we're
failure and
fucked,
yeah.
right?
Example, Dave Mustaine.
Sorry.
Dave Mustaine,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I don't
Megadeth. From
Oh,
Metallica,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
The guitarist from Metallica,
Yeah.
who was kicked out from Metallica,
Okay.
started his own band.
Yeah.
Hugely successful with Megadeth and everything. He will never be happy because
Right.
he's not in Metallica. But you
Right.
think what he
But
achieved?
Megadeth is a massive band
Exactly.
in itself. Right.
But he's not in Metallica anymore.
Right.
So that's like he will always be a failure in his own eyes because
Right.
he's out of Metallica. Although he
Yeah.
made his own band, like a huge
Exactly.
success story.
Exactly. So, there we go. But we're out of time. I want to cut it short. We can have a second series on this because I think it's worth talking about. But it seems like we've solved half the world's problems today.
Yeah, at least.
So I think we can leave it there. Yeah. So to recap, I think that this reframing is important. I think it's an important step. It's something that I can say that I apply to my everyday life. Clearing snow,
Yeah.
because I think it's worth talking